Hello, welcome to our new Tech Talk series, Ramp Chats. This is Polly Trailer at OpsRamp. We will not be doing demos for a little while nor talking about products, but instead having open conversations with people inside and outside of OpsRamp. By the way, if you don't know who we are, OpsRamp is a hybrid IT infrastructure discovery and monitoring platform powered by artificial intelligence. So, thanks again for joining us today. We're going to talk about how IT leaders are faring today now that we are a few months into the COVID-19 economy, if that's what you like to call it. We're going to discuss business sentiment, new priorities for IT, new technology directions, and workplace culture. So joining me today is our CEO, Varma Kunaparaju. Hi, Varma.
Hello. It's great to be here.
How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm doing very well, thank you. So before we jump into the main chat, I thought it would be nice just to connect on a personal level and find out from you how you are doing. I know that you normally travel a lot. Business travel is a big part of your workplace modus operandus, and I'm wondering, how's that going? You're not traveling anymore, and as well, anything new happening in the home front, maybe new hobbies or activities that you've been taking up with your family?
Very interesting times. I definitely do miss a lot of business travel. There is nothing that replaces in-person connections to the teams in the field. Meeting our partners and customers is always exciting for me. I definitely miss on that front. To your hobbies question, I haven't picked any hobbies, but hoping to balance a bit more in the context of pandemic, right? For the rest of the year. Meeting people with social distance, with extra precaution, and taking a hike once in a while, driving to reachable places, and changing the environment is what I'm looking for. A friend of mine recently quoted, "This is a stress test for many marriages." And
okay, great. So I'd love to ask you now a high-level question, and that is, we are in the next phase of the pandemic, or whether you call it the second or the third wave, I don't know. But in your conversations with other leaders in business or technology, what are people talking about right now? Are they continuing to be really worried about the economy, or are they moving on to more of a positive, even aggressive approach now that we are further into this and knowing that it's not going to be going away anytime soon?
Yeah, when I talk to, good question, when I talk to these leaders in various businesses and all, in my view, they went through three phases of this initial shock wave where it's going to go away, it's a short burst, the economy is going to open in the next week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, counting down to kind of get to an opening day, to a second phase where it's adjustment, right? It's going to be there for the rest of the year. And then more reality of late in the last month or so is this is going to be a little bit of a new normal, right? Those three are the three waves. The recognition is that there is vaccination hope, that people hope that it will come. It may come, even if it comes before the end of the year or beginning of the following year. There is a recognition that most leaders, most business leaders and IT leaders are thinking that before spring of 2021 is when the normal travel is going to come back. And it is going to be a new norm until at least spring of 2021, because the vaccination may be available only to emergency and essential workers when the vaccine comes. So right. That is the general sentiment that I'm hearing on the business side. When it comes to IT leaders, I think IT is more critical than ever before because of the business journey, more moving to digital, and digital transformation getting super accelerated by the entire pandemic, right? So yeah. A recent survey that we did in OpsRamp showed that early stages of the pandemic, with so much of uncertainty and fear in the first wave, majority of the leaders continue to take their digital transformation initiatives moving forward with no disruption to that. And as the second recognition, adjustment, and the third recognition, it is going to be new normal, some of those initiatives we are hearing from the business and IT leaders that they're getting accelerated, because that's the only way that their end customers are going to do business with is through digital means, e-commerce, delivery. All of those things are moving more and more to, how do I make these things happen without people going through the normal processes that they have been following before.
Yep, absolutely. Makes good sense. We're seeing companies like Chipotle that really accelerated through this due to the fact that they had been preparing for digital for a while. So they were able to move to a really fast transition to mobile ordering and pickup. So, again, looking at what's going forward right now, what do you think that companies are focusing on right now? I think, of course, it depends on industry, but what would you say is the focus more going down another layer here in terms of strategy and maybe even technology plans?
Yeah, I think the answer depends upon the particular business scenario and the vertical, right? If you look at most industries, the company's business leaders are looking at IT leaders as more strategy leaders than ever before, right? IT is no longer a technology strategy. IT is more a business strategy in this more pandemic hit businesses, right? Whether it is in impacted sector or whether it is not impacted sector. If I kind of broadly categorize the pandemic hit sectors, impacted sectors are travel, hospitality, real estate, retail, right? Non-impacted sectors are potentially pharma, telecom, education kind of a thing. In both the sectors, the CIOs and the IT spend remained very healthy. In some cases, it is accelerated. In some cases, it is probably stayed the same or optimized a little bit, but it doesn't mean the business did not stop moving forward. And the areas that most of these businesses are really focused on, how do I make sure my top line business is running or growing? That's number one. Number two, how do I make my workforce productive in the context of people working from remote? Number three, how do I make my operational cost savings maintained at a level that the profitability and the bottom line is maintained during the heavy hit, top line growth? Those are the three priorities and focus areas that every IT leader is thinking about. It falls into those three categories.
Yep, and that makes sense a lot. And so there are barriers certainly to getting all this working, and some organizations will have more money than others. But how would you describe those barriers that IT organizations generally are facing right now, and how are they going to get through those?
I think, in my view, it belongs to about 4 or 5 categories here. Number one is productivity. How do I make my remote workforce productive in the context of what's going on? Can we facilitate all the means and mechanisms that a remote worker behaves as if he's on premises, right? That's number one. Number two, security, right? In the good old days, when a remote branch office for an insurance or a healthcare or a hospital remote branch office, it's every remote office used to be a small office, branch office kind of a thing. Today, with a lot of workforce working from remote, every home and every individual that is contributing to remotely is becoming a small branch office scenario for the company. So security is number two. And number three is, struggles with legacy technology. There's a lot of technical debt, with a lot of redundant, underutilized systems, tools that are not working. There's a lot of struggles to prioritize and keep all of them together, right? Last but not the least is cost management. How do I make sure there is cost savings through optimization? Take any small office, lots of subscriptions, a lot of SaaS services and subscription services are getting done, and how do we kind of manage all of that to really bring the value that needs to be brought in the context of what needs to take place. These are the barriers, right? So if we kind of evolve these things and make these things prioritized, to make the productivity not suffered, and at the same time the people are contributing to what they need to do, then the business can take the top line growth and continue to improve the top line growth.
Yeah. A lot of really important initiatives there that the IT leader has to juggle for sure. So let's drill down a little bit and more into specific technology investments. And there are certain really hard hit sectors, retail, hospitality, government, public services, higher education, in which their budgets are maybe have contracted to the point where there's going to be no spending this year, or if so, just minimally. Now, other companies will have budget, but they're still being given the mandate, which IT kind of probably hates to hear, but doing more with less, and it's really important right now. So I'm wondering, what lens do you take to get through this? We need to do all these things, but how could an IT leader focus right now, given the cost pressures?
I think the focus for the most IT leaders is on the essentials to protect top line business revenue and make sure that they get the maximum return on investment, right? So delivering the business as close to new norm with remote, no touch, no physical proximity is the first order of priority. What does that mean? On a business by business, sector by sector, how do I make my end customers get the value that I am supposed to deliver in the context of people not visiting my store, or people not coming to my restaurant, or people not traveling, but still being able to deliver what they need to be delivered. So the top line focus is protecting the top line business revenue, and that really means giving the applications and interactions that the end customers are supposed to receive in the more digital world is the focus area. When it comes to IT and CIO, the priorities are, how do I make sure the business services that deliver the top line business revenue is protected, right? To make the top line business services go, 90% of the technology leaders expect to deploy technology or people and personnel. In case if they don't have the personnel, they leverage external expertise to make that revenue is protected. And we are seeing enterprises leveraging managed service providers, solution consultants, system integrators to drive the top line revenue in the context of digitization that needs to take place, and make sure that the revenues are protected.
Yeah, absolutely. So MSPs and other service providers could play a critical role here to help fill some of those gaps. How about IT operations, which is the space that OpsRamp lives in? I'm wondering, what kind of feedback you're hearing. One of the pain points is that large companies often have a lot of monitoring tools, and these have been ones that have been around for a while and then added over time as their needs have grown. And in some cases, those tools are important. In other cases, they're not doing their job anymore, or maybe they are just a redundant system that's adding to the complexity. I guess, what are your thoughts about IT operations and how this can be simplified and enhanced for the IT organization?
This is a tough one, right? Companies don't want to overhaul everything, but complexity is a killer. And when it comes to IT operations, the more focus in the context of pandemic is, how do I make sure that I give a business service and service health that is needed for my business unit to operate well? Or how do I make sure my end user experience for the services that they're consuming from IT is at the level that they need to, right? Those are the two critical things that people are looking at. If the business service that is need to be delivered is not performing at the level, or the user experience is not making the meeting the standards that the end user is expecting, in the new digital world, those two can really make the productivity and the loss of revenue. And those are the two critical areas. If you look at the monitoring tools and the instrumentation that many companies did, it is obvious that if there is no CIO who or no IT leader who will say he has less than a dozen or a 2 dozen monitoring tools. If you look at the most recent 451 research report, only 10% of the IT leaders said, or 11% of the IT leaders said they're happy with the existing tooling, right? So there's a lot of tools, but there is an unhappiness on how this tooling is delivering ultimately the value that needs to be delivered. And here are some ideas in my view to kind of address this. Number one is rationalizing this tool set towards more a business service. How do I understand, a business service is getting impacted, and taking a service and understanding that service all the way to the infrastructure instrumentation that is taking place. Observability gives you a lot of metrics in the form of metrics, logs, traces, and all of that. But not correlating all of that ultimately to a service experience is not good. So I think there will be a lot of rationalization of these tools that is needed. And once you rationalize these tools and understand what the service impact is, then one aspect of that is addressed. The second aspect is automation and how do I optimize, right? Those two are the two areas that really come into play. Automation from a perspective of how do I self-remediate some of these things so that my business service is impacted, and impacted resources are getting self-remediated in the context of wherever those infrastructure elements that are powering those business services. And then AI machine learning driven optimizations with respect to whether it is alert correlation, alert to incident creation, and then really finding the root cause from a lot of incidents that are taking place, using all this collaborative knowledge, not just based on the metrics and gathered information, but based on the topology and the services that are getting impacted. Those are the areas that the tooling and the instrumentation is taking place in the IT needs to evolve. And it is a journey, and more than ever before, we are seeing enterprises looking at their legacy footprints and then taking modernization effort, but may not be in rip and replace everything, but more in the form of an integrate to consolidate approach. Where do I take the first bet to modernize, second bet to kind of really consolidate?
Right. So simplify and keep what you need and be able to see everything in one place. Very good. I guess, we've talked about a lot today, a lot of mandates on the IT and business leader today. And, probably the most important thing are the people. And so there's been a lot of stress on people today. You've got your remote work from home stress, you've got family needs, and then just the general malaise right now that's going on and the uncertainty. And I'm wondering, as a leader, what ideas do you have to help with morale and keep people at work motivated during this time?
I think it's the answer is obvious, right? Communications, right? In the context of not being in the four walls of a building where you are seeing people eye to eye, doing water cooler talks, grabbing a lunch together, those things are completely missing. So communications, in my view, is not just all hands, which is leadership communicating to all the people is one level, but what we encourage, at least at OpsRamp, is peer-to-peer communications, right? How do I kind of announce some, office hours where, as an example, our product management team opens an office hours where our field staff can dial in through either Slack or through Zoom or some communication means to product managers during the work hours as if they are in the building, right? So communications, in my view, is not just leadership down, but peer-to-peer communications where we have given a lot of stress, and we believe that that's the number one important thing. That's where innovation takes place. people communicating with each other, coming up with ideas, and that cannot suffer because people are not in the office. And that communication has to be more uh, more ad hoc, more not scheduled, and that's what we are encouraging. That's number one. Number two, we're also doing more lunch and learns where people and employees share. It's not, you know, again, top down communication. Somebody did something, and that is getting communicated, and it's an open forum for doing people to share what they have been doing in their things. Then number three that we are doing is, like, in most of my interactions, my own interactions, whether it is to employee one-on-ones or customers or partners, I am always switching on my live stream. Though it is, in a home environment, it is perfectly fine being on the video and your pet or a dog or a cat, something walking by. It's a new norm, and making it personal, but switching on the video, making an eye contact, and that's the third element that we are using. And one or two things that we did very well in terms of our own best practices is, we kind of announced some wellness days. And during the summer we did announce 2 days of wellness, where we kind of allowed people to kind of take it easy, because we had hackathons by engineering teams putting people to run through during the pandemic, where we kind of had to do a bunch of releases that went live. So we did some wellness holidays, some flexibility for people to kind of work and handle their errands and things like that. There are a couple of common things that we did, and those are the best practices that I've been hearing from other CEOs who have a lot of remote workforces, just like OpsRamp is.
Yes, all very good ideas, and none of them really hard to implement. So, well, this has been a lot of fun, Varma. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who joined us today. We are going to have a few minutes for questions. So we've had a couple of audience questions, and we are going to allow folks to have one last opportunity to submit a question. And so we'll just let you do that right now. So let's look at our first one here, Varma. And this is how to overcome, I mean, in the context of cost management, how to overcome cash on hand issues.
First of all, the cost management comes down to all the costs that an enterprise today carrying, right? That most companies have not given that level of deep attention in the past, particularly around cloud consumption, SaaS subscriptions, and a few other things. Take an example of OpsRamp. We have a financial operations person who is looking at all the costs that the company is facing, in terms of subscriptions and over provision instances, and in cloud, and in SaaS subscriptions and other things. We're looking at every one of them and then figuring out what are the places that we're not fully. Number one priority, on optimizing. Number two is, can we do more with less? And what that means is, can we optimize in the form of automation? Can we optimize in the form of tools that we have not deployed in the past that will allow us to really bring certain aspects of cost savings? That's on the technology investments. One is more financial rigor. Number two is technology rigor to kind of automate. Number three is more about natural cost savings that came because there is no travel. Travel is a big piece of the budget for most companies, right? And how do we kind of use some of those budgets which are not used for travel, use it in such a way that can really put the foundation for what needs to be done if this executes, if this pandemic goes on for another 9 months, 12 months. People are talking about at least until summer of next year. So those are the things that we as a company doing in general. But this goes from industry specific to business, between IT leaders and the finance organization. They need to kind of look at what the cost factors are, the business impacting factors that makes the business to go, and then look at what else needs to be done behind the business to really bring that together.
Okay, oh, wonderful. I think we'll have time for one more question here before we wrap. This is about startups. The question is, how should I evaluate a startup right now as an investment or as a new potential, vendor to our business?
A great question. Startups are all about innovation, right? If you're an IT leader or if you're a business leader looking at a technology, brings new technologies, innovative new ideas, and you as when you need a solution and the solution is coming from a startup, there is no difference whether it is pre-pandemic or post-pandemic. As long as the company has the financial stability that the company needs to be in business, and most startups with good technology and platform ideas, they will continue to survive, with pandemic or without pandemic. Those technologies will never die. Startups typically never die. Startups run out of cash, and that means they get executed, they get merged into other larger companies, and the product survive. So my view is the decisions for finding a startup is the same. The same rigor that followed, pre-pandemic or post-pandemic, it is the same. As long as the company has a great product and it is the right technology for an enterprise or a customer to kind of really consume, it is the same parameters that have always been used. And more than ever before, I believe the new norm is, can you work with someone not only brings a solution, but make the solution bring the value beyond implementation. And startups have the hunger to make the value and provide the entire ROI for every penny that the customer really put behind a company. And in the context of cost management and bringing the value, the hunger from startups is super important for enterprises to look. And I not because I'm representing a startup here, but I think that's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm hearing from other IT leaders. Their decisions on startups never changed. And we went through many recessions, many ups and downs, and used to be the same way.
Great. We have about a minute here. This is a big question. We'll see what you can do with it, Varma. Last one here. And that is the profile of the modern CIO changing? Is the role becoming more business-centric or closer to the customer right now?
Absolutely. More than ever before, as I said in the previous questions that you asked, CIOs are not seen as a technology leaders alone. They're seen as a business leaders, as a business strategy part, right? In fact, some of the companies are asking, do we have a board member who is with technology leadership, right? These are all like brick and mortar large enterprises who have boards, who have operational discipline, finance discipline, and a lot of supply chain discipline. Now all of a sudden, do I have a leader who technology into the board mix so that we can really see the business strategy evolving, pivoted around the technology? And I think that continues to play as we enter into 2021 and the next 4 or 5 years. This is going to continue to a big role in the overall strategy for the company.
Fabulous. So great opportunities for CIOs and other IT leaders right now, despite kind of a stressful time. Well, I think we're at the end of our time here. Again, thank you, Varma. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. It was a great discussion. I just wanted to make everyone aware of a few upcoming events we're having here. We'll be doing some more of these conversations with folks inside and outside of the company. You can check them out at our website here in our events page. And you can see the next talk is about addressing the gap between development and operations. Should be a great one that is happening next week. And again, thank you so much to everyone. It was a wonderful conversation, and hope everyone has a great rest of their day and week. And thank you, Varma.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Okay.